Welcome guys, I thought I'd do a more in-depth torpedo tutorial. I have already done a couple, but they were quite basic and didn't really go into many of the finities. So hopefully this one will maybe explain a few things more that my other two didn't. Okay, so the two things that aren't obvious, they're not only not obvious, but it's almost misleading information. But I can pretty confidently say that this is what's happening based on all the experience that I've had in the game. So basically, just as your guns work, they work on a percentage basis, depending on whether you put them on safe, normal and aggressive. Now, if you read aggressive, it says open fire with all guns at any range. Now, it's not actually at any range regardless. There is still a accuracy factor into it. So, if the enemy's at 0% or even 0.1%, then your guns won't fire. Now, it's exactly the same for your torpedoes. Although on here it says dash for accuracy, I can pretty confidently say that they use accuracy when deciding when to shoot. So for example, if the enemy ship is small, you're going to have a small accuracy, a minus accuracy penalty. If they're fast, you're going to have a minus accuracy penalty. If they're doing a really tight maneuver, you're going to have a minus accuracy penalty. All of these things will add up and will determine whether your ship thinks it's a good idea to fire its torpedoes or not. So, you will find that if a small ship at a very long distance that's doing a tight maneuver, you're not going to fire at. But as soon as it stops doing its tight maneuver and it starts going in one straight direction, then your ship will fire. And that's because the accuracy has improved to the degree that your ship thinks, okay, it's good to fire now. Even on aggressive, where it says open fire with all torpedoes at any range, it still has a percentage modifier in there just to make sure you're not firing at 0%. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is if you're sailing parallel to the enemy, if they're at a huge distance to you, your torpedoes aren't going to fire underwater ones now, not deck torpedoes. So your underwater torpedoes won't fire even if you're parallel with somebody, because if they did, your torpedo wouldn't hit them because they're travelling in a direction. So what the AI does is obviously calculate the speed and the heading of the enemy ship to figure out that the enemy, to be hit by a torpedo, needs to be aimed here. Which means that if you're parallel with a ship, your firing arc of your underwater torpedoes is not inside the projected point of where the enemy's going to be. So you then need to change your heading to not be parallel to offset the distance between each other. So if you were right next to each other, parallel's fine because there isn't enough distance for the firing arc to matter. But at a distance like this, obviously they're going to be travelling a much further distance. Your firing arc is not going to be in line. So I'm going to try and demonstrate that. Your deck torpedoes should fire immediately unless the enemy's doing a tight maneuver, which is because of the accuracy modifier. And your underwater torpedoes should not fire because they haven't got, although you're sailing parallel with them, they're not going to be parallel at point of impact, and so your underwater torpedo launchers are not going to be in the correct firing arc. So our torpedo range is 12.3. I'm going to set this guy as the target because he is sailing parallel with me. So once we get within 12.3, I'll level off. So his projection is going to be approximately here because of the heading and the speed. So the torpedo would need to aim about here to hit him at the current angle that he's travelling. Just move these away. So he's almost in range now. So as you see, the deck torpedoes launched because they're firing in that angle, which is where the projection is, but the underwater torpedoes didn't because their firing arc was not inside the projected angle that the ship was travelling at. So if you adjust your angle so it's not parallel with the enemy, depending on what range he's at, you'll now see that the underwater torpedoes were inside the angle now because we changed the angle of the ship to not be parallel anymore. So the angle of the torpedo launchers was pointing at the projected angle that the enemy ship was travelling at. So that's a demonstration of the angle that you need to be at, and why sometimes it may seem I'm pointing straight at him, why is he not firing? Well, it's because he's not going to be there anymore, and that's why it's not firing. So the cruiser, 0% chance to hit. We'll see if the launchers fire. So the launchers aren't firing. They aren't firing. They aren't firing. But if we switch to a target that's got more than 0% chance to hit, then all of the deck launchers fired. So if you're at a 0% chance to hit, so like see here now, he's gone down to 0 because he's done a sharp evasive maneuver. If you're at a 0% chance to hit, your torpedo launchers won't fire. So I just wanted to add one more thing before I finish, and that is one thing that you might be confused about. What I've explained might seem misleading, so I'm just going to try and clear it up now rather than mislead you and have you asking questions. Is when I was saying that you've got a 0% to hit chance, this is factoring in your percent to hit chance with all of your guns. So if you had really accurate guns over a long distance, it might say that your to hit chance is, I don't know, 0.5 or 1% or 2%, but your torpedoes still aren't firing. Now that's because the percent to hit chance is working out your average gun chance of hitting, not your torpedo chance of hitting. So yeah, if you play a game and you've gone off what I've said, if you have higher than 0% hit chance, your guns will fire, your torpedoes will fire, and then you see, in a minute, I have got more than 0% to hit chance. Well, that is simply because that to hit chance is not your torpedo to hit chance. That is your other gun's average. So yeah, I just thought I'd clear that up quickly, so it doesn't lead to any confusion. Right, cheers guys, thanks for watching, hope it's been in some way helpful, and I'm not going to fire these underwater torpedoes because I've got a 0% to hit chance, so I just thought I'd show that one more time before I go. He did turn around and then go straight, gave him 0.1, which then fired some of my other launchers, but then as soon as he got into 0, he stopped firing again. So yeah, hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care guys.